Okay, you fans all over the world of the wonderful, beautiful Marilyn Monroe, who was born Norma Jeane Mortensen in 1926. I'm in the Westwood neighborhood of West Los Angeles. Where I'm going to take you fans is I'm going to take you to where Norma Jeane at age 16 married the 21-year-old Jimmie Dougherty. Okay, it's at 432 South Bentley Avenue, and I'm starting out in this section right here because I wanted to show the fans all over the world of what this area looks like. It's actually a few blocks a little bit west of UCLA, and if you're at all interested, this is the stomping grounds of also the young Robert Redford in the 1940s. This is where he grew up. After his father made a little bit more money, he moved his son and his wife to this area of Westwood, Brentwood. Actually, he lived west of what is now the 405 freeway in the Sepulveda Pass. And here's Montana Avenue, and this is where he grew up with all his friends who went to University High, or what they called Uni High, where incidentally Norma Jeane went also. And she dropped out in the 10th grade, and on June 19th, 1942, America's first summer of its entry into the Great World War II. And okay, we're gonna make a left here. I'm showing you fans all over the world just a little bit of the way it looks around here in this area. And at that time period, 1942, the Americans hadn't yet invaded or had major pitched battles with the Japanese Empire's armies that were storming across Southeast Asia. In a few weeks right after this period, when Norma Jeane married Jimmie, the U.S. Marine Corps would invade the Guadalcanal Island, Archipelago, and American submariners were laying havoc to Japanese Empire shipping all over the South Pacific. And of course, Germany in a couple of days in that period would have invaded southern Russia into the Ukraine, heading for the Caucasus, and they would have their fateful end at a place called Stalingrad, the armies of the southern Wehrmacht. Okay, we're coming down this way, and like I said, the address is 432 South Bentley. And this right over there, up on that hill, I couldn't get a shot of it, but that's where the J. Paul Getty Art Museum is. Okay, I can't see it there. Okay, we're gonna make a left here on Kashmir Street. So you fans all over the world, like I said, you can get a pretty good idea of this section of Los Angeles. Okay, now we're coming up to Bentley. Now all the soldiers, sailors at that time period, they didn't know how long the war was going to last, so they were grabbing their gals and they were marrying their war brides. Here you go, Bentley Avenue, 400 South. We're going to go to 432. And this was the home of a friend of Grace's. He was an attorney, actually. His name was Chester Howell. And the reason why they said that Grace picked this house, because it had a fantastic spiral staircase. And she wanted her Norma Jeane, she was a stepmother, actually, the guardian of Norma Jeane. She wanted the sweet, beautiful, young Norma Jeane to have a grand entrance down the spiral staircase. And a lot of you fans, as you're aware, you can see a lot of photos of Jimmie And Norma Jeane in this house that we're gonna come up to at 432 in front of, had those photographs where Jimmie had that white tuxedo and Norma Jeane had that beautiful gown that was made by Auntie Anna in front of that white fireplace. Okay, here we come. We're coming up to it, and thankfully it's still extant. Here it is, 432. And this is where the young Norma Jeane at 16 got married with a 21-year-old James Dougherty. And the bridemaid that who served as the bridemaid of Norma Jeane, her name was Lorraine Allen. She was like a school chum from Uni High. And Marion, the brother of Jimmie, that was Jimmie's best man. So here you go, it's still extant. The former home of the attorney friend of Grace Goddard, Chester House home. And you fans all over the world, here it is. This is where the young, sweet, soon-to-be major star of the 20th century got married at 16 in the summer of 1942. While the whole world was at war, at least in this little house right here, there was a little bit of happiness taking place here. Wow, and I just looked it up. This house, it's $2 million. It's worth $2 million. And here's like a little roundabout shot of the area. It's still extant, like I said. And Norma Jeane, she stayed married to Jimmie until she got a quickie divorce in Las Vegas in 1946. In fact, after they married here at this house, they moved to a little bungalow in Sherman Oaks at 4524 Vista Del Monte. And too bad the little bungalow isn't there anymore. There's actually a condo in its place. And it had a Murphy bed, Jimmie said. In fact, he died at 84 years old. He was married 2 times. He died in 2005. He had 3 daughters from his second wife, Patricia Skoman, and his third wife was Rita Lambert. And then he said Patricia was really jealous. He said he could never talk about her. Nobody could ever mention her name in the house, he said. And she felt like she was always competing with Marilyn. And he said he ended up having to destroy hundreds of letters that Norma Jeane wrote him while they were married, while he was in the South Pacific in the Merchant Marine. And he said too bad that he did, because he could have bought a home with all those letters that could have gone off for auction. And of course, to the world, it would have been really interesting to have been able to get into the psyche of the young Norma Jeane. And if it wasn't for Grace, and of course her mother Gladys, who was actually at Norwalk Metropolitan Hospital, which is also extant. It even looks like it did in that time period. They were always taking her to the films and movies, and always telling her, don't worry honey, you're gonna be beautiful just like Jean Harlow. Don't worry honey, the world's gonna love you. And if it wasn't for them projecting their desires of stardom and imprinting in the young mind of Norma Jeane, we wouldn't have had Marilyn Monroe, of course. And here it is again. And Jimmie, he retired as an LAPD detective, and he wrote 2 books, one in 1976 called The Secret Happiness of Marilyn Monroe, and then he wrote To Norma Jeane with Love in 1997. And he's also in a documentary and done about, of course, Marilyn. And when they got married, they went to, actually after they moved out of the Sherman Oaks bungalow, they moved to Catalina Island until the young Jimmie shoved off to go help fight in the South Pacific in April of 1944. And pretty much after that, Norma Jeane ended up living with his mother Ethel, and of course the rest is history. She started working for Radio Plane in Burbank, and then of course getting those photos taken of her of young pretty girls doing their bit for the war effort. And if you're at all interested, please check out my other videos of where Norma Jeane lived during that period in 1944 through 1946. And okay, well, at least look, all you persons all over the world, you can see it's still extant. This area looks exactly the way it did in that summer of 1942. And like I said, we're in the Westwood area behind UCLA. And let me give you fans a rundown of the guests that were at the wedding. Of course, Ethel was there, Jimmie's mother. I don't know if his father was there or if he was even alive. I never read anything about the guy. But Auntie Anna gave her away, obviously, because she had no father, and she was the last guardian who took care of her before she got too sick. And then she had to move back to Van Nuys with Grace and Doc. And then he got hired at a place called Adele Precision Instruments, and then they were going to transfer him to West Virginia. So it was sort of like a marriage of convenience, even though Jimmie said they were lovers, they were sweethearts. And but then later, after she got divorced, later in interviews, Norma Jeane said that she didn't love him, and she wasn't very happy, and she wasn't very sad, but that she said that they really didn't have anything to talk about, and she was extremely bored, and she always saw Jimmie more like a brother. And so, and she was in 10th grade at Uni High when she dropped out to get married, or else they were going to put her in an orphanage. She couldn't move to West Virginia. They couldn't take her, Grace and Doc, with her daughter BB. So in order for her to keep from being sent to an orphanage, of course, they married her off to Jimmie, and he was more than glad to. He said they loved each other and they were kind of happy. And she said that this person named Lorraine Allen, she didn't even really know Norma Jeane when she asked her to be her bridesmaid. And at that time period, people were a little more selfless, I think. So she kind of probably felt bad for her and said, sure, honey, why not? Okay, so wherever you're at, Norma Jeane, Marilyn Monroe, the most beautiful woman of the 20th century. I hope you're in a better place. And good night, sweet princess.